Have you ever started a project and you failed so many times that you wanted to just throw the thing in the garbage and forget that you ever tried? Because that's what this video is about. I set out to build a skid plate under my Jeep Wrangler to cover my transmission that I dented in a few months ago so that it doesn't happen again. And while the idea was there and the design wasn't terrible, there was a few fatal flaws. The first version was no-go. Then I redesigned it and went for a second version, but I couldn't make it strong enough to resist the weight of the Jeep in this version because of how the arms were. The level of frustration on this project was real, and if it wasn't for having a pocket full of motivation and persistence, I don't think that I ever would have fully got through this. I figured sharing the story of my failures might help somebody out someday, so let's get into the video. So you know, when you got an off-road rig, skid plates are kind of important. I've got a little bit of a weak spot. I was at the Iowa Jeep show and somehow I kind of picked up a rock and basically had myself hanging on the transmission pan and it caved it in and everything. So I have a oil pan skid and my belly pan, but there's nothing in between. So let's crawl under here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here's my belly pan. This is a Barnes 4-wheel drive. I think it's a 2-inch drop, highly modified to fit everything. And this is a Metal Cloak Jeep 4.0 engine oil pan skid, but that's caved in pretty good. There are companies out there that sell skid plates for the AW4 transmission that just utilize the bolt holes, but it doesn't solve the part where the dipstick tube is like low-hanging fruit here. It's really exposed. So the basic idea is I want to connect these two and just make it so it's all one big piece. But what I don't want is, I don't want it hanging lower than this, but I don't want it tucked up higher than this because I don't want to create ledges to get hung up on. So this is where I made my first mistake, because this oil pan skid is fully connected to the engine on all 4 attachment points, which means it can move with the engine because the engine is mounted on bushings and it has to move. And I tried connecting it to a belly pan that doesn't move. And I really wish that I would have thought about this before I did all this work. I'm gonna build a tab that comes out like this, and then I'll drill a hole in here. I wanna weld a nut to the back side just so I can run a bolt in, because I want this to be easy to remove because I have to pull this pan every now and then, and I don't want it to take 45 minutes to get the whole thing off. So per usual, we'll be using some cardboard here. This mark here. Let's go see if we got some scrap that we can make this out of. And well, the answer to that question is I don't have any 1/4 inch that's big enough. So I'm gonna have to pick up some metal, but what we can do is make the plate where it attaches to the belly pan. On that one side, I forgot to account that I need like this much room to be able to get that bolt in. My piece is not gonna be like this. It's gonna be like that, so I can't have a bolt here that's just gonna run into it. Can't say I love it, but it should give me that clearance. I need to get a bolt right there. So I found a complication. If I want to put that bolt right there, that's gonna be difficult. I had welded this angle iron rib in here and it terminates right where I want that hole, so there's a little bit of room off to either side, so I can probably still get a bolt there. And then over here I've got one as well. I got some figuring to do here. We're making this shit up as we go, so it is what it is. Yeah, I don't see any reason that shouldn't work. So I think I decided I'm gonna cut this little slot out with a plasma cutter. I'm gonna use kind of a new one that I got. This company called Best Arc sent this to me and they want me to review it, but as you guys know, I don't review anything until I've used it a little bit. This thing's actually quite a bit better priced than the Yes Welder plasma cutter that I have already, and it's quite a bit smaller and lighter also. So I'm actually kind of stoked to see how it works. So right off the bat, the fact that it has the built-in air-water separator and the regulator is built right into the machine, that's actually really cool, because on the S-Welder one, you have to put that all together and bolt it on the back. And I mean, yeah, this sticks out too, but it's got this little guard around it. I don't know, I just think that's cool that it's built in. Let's get it hooked up. So that was super quick to get set up. Let's fire it up and see how loud it is. Oh, that's nice. On-demand fan. Put her up on about, I don't know, 35 amps or so. Let's give her a whirl. This torch is almost identical to the one on my Yes welder. It looks like it uses the same consumables even, which it came with a couple extras. And it's got this standoff so that you don't touch your tip. Right out of the box, not really playing with the settings too much. That cut pretty good. Had pretty minimal dross on it. I just picked it right off with the pliers. I mean, yeah, the cut's not perfect. It's because I don't have a very steady hand. Alright, so I did a bunch of metal salvaging this weekend. I ended up getting 3 of these like partial sheets of 3/16. It's a little thinner than I wanted to use for this, but it's gonna work because I'm gonna reinforce it. I've got this traced out, and I think what I'm gonna do is I put some extra on this side so we can put it in the press brake, bend it up, add some rigidity to it. I did the same thing on this side, but I have to cut this away, so I just need that little bit of clearance. What I'm going to do is leave all this extra here, and I'm probably going to cut outside of this line, and then this dash line is where I'm going to bend, and I'm doing that because it'll make it easier to use my press brake if I have a little bit of extra on here. Anyway, fire up the old plasma. Should have done that on this edge, but I'm stupid. This is going to be interesting, seeing if the old swag press brake can bend that long of a piece of 3/16. I've bent quarter and even 3/8 and stuff with it, but usually just small pieces, so we're going to see if it's all at once or not. We're going to check that. That's about what I had in mind, and I can just cut that off, and that should give this a bunch more rigidity. Let's go ahead and bang the other side out real quick. You see where that says bottom right there? I made it the top. And it needed to be the bottom because I needed this cut out on this side. So I was supposed to bend these the other way, and I effed it up. I think I'll probably just weld this sumbitch back on there. She'll weld. That part was easy. And I'll weld this up later. So we're back on track. So we've got her magneted on, and I'm gonna weld it back on. This is pretty redneck stuff right here, guys. You know, it's basically like it never even happened at this point. Notch is on the right side now. You can hardly even tell I cut it off unless you look and see that I welded it. So then, this is the piece I cut last time. It's intended to go at this end, but it has the angle this way, so I'm gonna have to lop that corner off once I figure out what the angle is. But that's gonna be it for tonight. Coming out here to test fit this thing, and I found a little issue. So I think this piece that I made needs to be longer. There's a rib right here, so I either have to put the bolt here or way over here. And so this isn't long enough now. I'm gonna sit somewhere at that region. So I'm gonna need that piece like clear out to about right there. So I guess it's round 2. Basically like it never even happened. Boom, just like that, it's fixed. So now it's actually time to clamp this onto the barn skid plate and transfer the holes and get those drilled, get some bolts in it.
Later.
Well, that was a whole bunch of not fun, but they're drilled, and let's see if we did it right. Got some bolts. These will do for now to hold it up there. Well, the supervisor just wrote me up for drilling without safety glasses again. You can see that it does not drop below the bottom of the skid plate. But anyway, now we can test fit that other piece, and then we can hold it on there with some big magnets to this to get the height set right, and then go ahead and put a bunch of really healthy tacks on here. Of course, I didn't catch it on camera, but I was just trying to hold the skid plate up there with welding magnets, and yeah, one of these big bad boys just came down and hit me plumb in the fucking mouth, and it just feels great. Super stoked about it. I definitely have to trim this edge more. Holy cow. Didn't feel good. Alright, that should hold. Oh, down goes Frazier. Should be a pretty smooth transition between these two now. Not too bad. Alright, so best I can tell, I gotta take about 1/4 inch off the front of this. We're gonna mimic this little pillbox thing, something like that. I go to drain oil, it just has somewhere to fall. I decided to make some little walls for right here, so I'm gonna get this tacked on there real quick. The fit up ain't perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It just pulled. Gotta be real careful over here by where I did that bolt. I don't want any weld there. Well, that's kind of ugly, but we'll get it ground down and that side of it will be a buttload stronger now. Does anybody else do that with the rabbit holes? I came out here strictly to do these brackets, and then I ended up on this whole thing. And it doesn't have to be super structural, it's just giving some more rigidity to it or whatever. Now it's time to jump back on these. So I've got these scraps of 1/4 inch. I'm just gonna enlarge these holes up to 1/2 inch because that's the bolt size, and then we'll go down there and try to mock these up to the skid plate. So while these brackets would have worked great as a skid plate mount, tying it into the engine and transmission from the belly pan just isn't going to work. So these are going to end up getting cut off, but perfect. I figured I'd leave it in here. Why not? Turning it in that way just so I get more weld on it. Oh, sweet. Go get the old welder fired up. I am almost completely out of welding gas. I'm going to do the rest on the ground after I tack it in a couple more places so it can't bend. So I'm going to go ahead and get these insides welded first. Let's hope I have enough gas. Alright, so those are cut off flat, and I grooved it back out along there so that I can just weld that one more time and I'll grind it flat again. Alright, there's just one more thing to do before we paint it, and that is I'm going to put a couple drain holes in it, because this thing, not only is it going to catch mud and water, but I got that leaky rear main seal, it's going to catch some oil, and I'd like it to be able to get out. Well, y'all, I gotta go make the deviled eggs for Thanksgiving, but the next time you see this thing, it's gonna be painted and put up in the Jeep. So some of you may have already watched the first version of this video. I had it posted for less than a day before I got the comment that made me realize that I can't connect the frame to the engine, because, you know, I probably would have broke those tabs off the bell housing. So this is where version 1 ended up and what it looked like, and I thought I was done, and it was kind of a punch in the gut to realize that I had to redo it. And so now we start phase 2. I got it together like I said, but like I mentioned earlier in the video, we got to change it. So let me show you what's up. It's mounted to this bell housing, this blank hole that's in there, and the whole engine and transmission have to move on their bushings a little bit. This doesn't move, so that means this doesn't move, and that means that'll break off. So the idea here, on this side, I'm thinking I'm just gonna go something like that. The other side gonna be a little more tricky because we got a drive shift here, so it's like right where that would go. So I've been playing around with some coat hanger, and I'm thinking if I do something like that, which gives it the drive shaft enough room to move up, no matter what I do, I'm actually going to leave it bolted up until I have these all the way done and bolted up. Then I'll remove it and just cut all this crap out. So the engine skid will still stay bolted right here because it's attached fully to the engine, even on these front mounts. Just goes right into the side of the block. Ideally, by leaving it connected while I build those, it'll keep this exactly where it's at because it's exactly where I want it right now. It's kind of a shame because this thing turned out so cool and I really like it, and I thought I was done. You know, the other option that I would have would be to leave it connected here and make this whole thing just like this one where it can move with the engine, and that would mean completely redesigning this mount somehow to still be able to move with the engine, and there's just nothing to go to. There's just no way I can see to do it that way, guys. Sometimes we make mistakes and sometimes we have to pay for them. Okay, so these are the basic 2 shapes that I'm going to be making. That should give me my clearance over the drive shaft, and that'll be where it goes on the frame. This needs to be a little longer. I cut it too short, but whatever. So I think for this one, we're going to use this 1/4 inch strap. It'll be easier to bend, but having these bends in it will give me places to put little triangle gussets to make it beefy. So on this one, I do believe we're actually just going to use this piece of angle iron. I may have to just put a little notch for where my exhaust tube is. Something like this gives it way more rigidity. I don't know. There's probably a better way to do it, but this is what we're going to do. I was doing so good, and then I got a little greedy on that last one, bent it too far, as you can see. That's all right, we'll smack that back. This is what we got. I've been tweaking on it a little bit. I put a little extra jog in it right there, and then I tried to put a little bit of a twist in it. And the reason is just the angle of the skid plate. So get it in here. I think this is close enough to go ahead and get our hole drilled through this and through the frame. God, that's a thing of beauty when you get those. All right, so we're gonna see what the biggest size nutsert I have is, so we know how big of a hole to drill. I would really like to use standard, but it looks like 5/16 is the biggest I've got, but I do go up to M12 on the metric, so that's what we're gonna use. Because if you don't have a riv nut gun, you're missing out. We'll see what bit I need so this fits nice and tight in the Jeep frame, and then I'll drill that just a little bit bigger. Before we go attaching that side, we're gonna get this side caught up. Tell you one thing, I got that thing for a steal, like 40 bucks, but it needs a new blade bad. That's about, I don't know, 4 minutes into that cut already. I think that's worth a test fit. I scored a little line on there just to help it bend a little bit, so once I get it exactly where I want, I'll weld that back up. I was right about that. I do have to trim about that much out for the exhaust, but this should still be a pretty strong piece, and then that's about what I have to trim out for the frame, so let's knock that out. Alright, so I think I got both of these ready to like test fit, clamp in there, start drilling the holes in the frame and stuff. I don't want this to just turn into a taco, and it is 1/4 inch plate, but it won't take much to just push this up, so I want to try to make this as strong as I can. And that's kind of what happens when you screw up. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you got, and hopefully it's good enough. I just need to trim a little bit more because it's just touching the exhaust, and I don't need that rattling. We'll mark where we want our hole to go for the bolt. Over here on this one, I cut it off, tucked it down on the inside, and it actually fits quite a bit better. You can see there's all kinds of drive shaft clearance. Got this sitting pretty good. This side's, it's just sitting a little low, but it's good enough for me to go ahead and get this hole drilled. Slow, tedious, painstaking work. Still wish I had a better way to mount this, something where I could just go vertical with it. About the only other thing I could do is maybe just build a little standoff to the body. I'm just knowing if I hit this as hard as I hit it when I caved that trans pin in, it's gonna want to push these up. And if I had just one leg of something that just went up to something solid, I know that would help tremendously. Need these holes to be just a little bit bigger than 9/16, so we'll start with that and then see if I can get the nutsert to pound in there or not. Put the old die grinder on the drill, and it's working pretty good. I just got a little bit more on this one. Bam! So I'm gonna go get those popped in. Yep, that's it. Alright guys, they are fitting really good. I got the bolts in, and they're actually fitting so good I don't even need to clamp them to weld them. They're just like perfect. Problem I'm having is I just don't think they're going to be strong enough because they go straight out to the side, and that's not going to resist any load of like being slammed against. So I'm still trying to come up with some other secondary way to support it, and I just don't know what that is right now. I don't really want to go to the floor because if you hit it really hard and that decided to take all the weight, it could just punch a dent in the floor. Over here, I think I can just box this. I probably wish that I would have just used tubing instead of flat strap, but it's what I have. But we can go ahead and get these welded up. I don't know how I'm not out of gas yet, but I'll take it. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kinda hate this. I don't know how else to do it. You know, every step of the way I hate this a little more. I don't know why I only put one bolt here, and it's just not gonna be strong enough. I wish I would have done this different from the start, and I could start over, or I could just keep adding shit to it. So thinking about adding that there, and then putting a second bolt hole here. Probably just have to drill from the outside, use a through bolt. And same thing over here. I know it ends up looking kind of goofy, but I think it's gonna help the strength. This thing has just turned into a shit show. Hey, that ain't so bad. This thing looks like an airplane. So this side's pretty straightforward. Went ahead and welded that up. I'm trying to come up with some ideas for boxing this in and doing some kind of gussets down to here. This side, I'm actually thinking about boxing this in and making it kind of like tube, but basically just bend another piece like up to there, and then down into about right there, and then I can just fill in the sides, and it'll just be basically the world's dumbest looking tube you've ever seen. Before I start welding on it, find a piece of scrap to tack in here just to like keep it in its shape so that it doesn't pull and then not fit back in the Jeep. It's basically like a kid playing with Legos. I'm just winging it, alright? So in order to combat this whole flexibility, rigidity thing, I took this big old chunky piece and I'm gonna put that right in there, and that should really get rid of that aspect of it. I know this looks dumb, but I'm gonna box this all in, and it's basically gonna be like tube instead of strap. I wanted to say thanks to Best Art for sending me out that plasma cutter. It's worked beautifully on this job, and really appreciate y'all sending that out. If you guys want to check one out, I'll leave a link down below, and there should be a little discount code for you too. Well guys, it finally happened. I'm finally out of welding gas, so I've got a choice between TIG, stick, or flux core, I guess. Really hate flux core, but I loaded up the 205 with it, and we're gonna give it a go. You know, there's parts of this whole build and design that I think went really well and worked out really well, and then there's other parts of it where I don't know what I was thinking. And you know what? I don't build enough stuff like this, and so it's just trial and error sometimes, guys. It really is. But you know what? The only way to get better is just to keep trying stuff, keep failing, and keep sticking with it. And that's what we're doing here. This is why I hate flux core. Now I gotta clean all these BBs, but honestly, for me hating it so bad, it didn't turn out too bad looking. There's a couple that look like hell. Well, the kid needed some help earlier with stick welding because he was struggling on an assignment at school, so I had the stuff out. I figured, why not? And I'm a little rusty with it, but overall not too bad. But you can see I got a bunch of undercut on that upper lip, so I probably had her just a bit too hot. But you know what? It's just a little brace, because anything beyond this point is unsupported, so if I land on a rock, I didn't want it to bend up. Alright guys, I know I skipped a lot of this work, but I built these gussets that go up onto there. I finally did get my welding gas refilled, so I was able to MIG on these. So the only thing I didn't do was TIG weld anything on here. Maybe I'll still do that, but obviously I threw those in. I just got done drilling these drain holes because these were like little bowls now, and this, I mean, this thing's definitely going to get water and mud and crap up in there. The only issue I had on the first test fit was this side seemed fine, but this side was hanging a little bit below the frame, and if I pushed it up to the frame, then this went higher than the oil pan skid, and I want it to be a smooth transition. I tried like welding a brace across here, but it like sunk a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is go bolt it in on this end, probably throw this bolt in, and if this side's low, I've got two options. One is if it's only like a 1/4 inch low, I can just make a little spacer. If it's any more than a 1/4 inch, I'm probably going to lop it off right here, move it up to where I have to, weld it, and then we're pretty much done, other than I have to paint it, and then I'm going to have to drill the holes through these side plates that I made. And I won't be able to get the nutsert tool, so I think I'm just going to drill a long bolt through the frame from the outside and try to, you know, measure it and everything so I can catch that, and just, it'll just be a bolt and a nut. You can see I'm still pretty level here. That's a decent little gap there. And this is some 1/4 inch plate. I think that will pull itself up, but when it does, you can see it's gonna push this up and create a bigger ledge here. Because of how it pulled in a little bit, I no longer line up, so I pretty much don't have a choice but to lop this off and just move it up a little bit and weld it back on. Mistakes were made, but I'll whip that out real quick. I had to space this out because when it pulled away from the frame too. So I got everything where I wanted, a nice big old valley to weld in. Nothing to it but to do it. Alright, so watch what happens when I jack this up. That is not what I wanted. So yeah, just as I thought, it flexes up pretty bad on the front. I mean, if it hit anywhere back here, I'm sure it'd be fine. But it gets up to where I believe it's touching the bottom of the bell housing where I put those supports up in there. It's really hard to see. But I don't know, I'm being anal and I just can't have that. So I'm gonna have to find a way to brace this thing up to the floor. Honestly, I'm really frustrated and I need a break from it, and yeah. All right, we're gonna do it again, but this time we're gonna jack right under where these supports are. Mostly to let me know if it's just these things that aren't strong enough, or if that was literally just this end piece kind of bowing up. Yeah, you can see the whole thing still. It still definitely went up some. Getting real close to my exhaust pipe there. Alright guys, we're into the new year now. I took quite a long break from this project. The biggest issue with this thing is it would work, but if I slam that down on a rock, I don't need it hitting my transmission. I don't want to break my transmission or the bell housing or anything like that. It's just to me it's not good enough, and I've got an idea how to make it work. I'm gonna show it what I plan on doing to you guys, and I'm really hoping somebody actually can chime in and maybe tell me that I'm just missing something obvious on this, and we might have to finish this in another video. So I'll crawl down there and show you what I'm talking about. So I've got these square tubes here that will fit in between the top of the frame and the bottom of the body. They'll slide in there, and I believe if I get them on there strong enough with some gussets, then I can run some vertical supports up to them. I'll show you in a second. The only crappy part is I wish I had something thicker. This is, I don't know, 1/8 inch probably. And these are actually thinner, but they're Ford Bronco crash bars is actually what they are. And it's hardened steel, so it's like, it's way stronger than you think it would be. I've actually built a few things out of these already. The legs on my axle stand are built out of these also, right there. So if you look right up here, I can get this up and above the frame. And I know it's really hard to see, but if I weld that to the frame, make some gussets and everything, then it'll be directly above this. And then hopefully, sorry about these weird shadows, I'm trying to light it up, build something vertical to go straight to this. And I can do the same thing on this side. It's going to be harder to weld it to the frame because all the fuel lines and everything are there. There's room to get it past. I just have to move those out of the way to be able to weld it. But I'm thinking triangle gusset off the frame up to that, weld it on the front, weld it up here on this side where it sticks out, and that'll give it some of that like vertical support that it needs. Because right now, like, I mean, it's not that these aren't strong, it's just you can't resist something on the vertical plane when it's coming out to the side. Picture like standing in a doorway and you stick your arms out to the side like this and hold onto the door, and then somebody walks up and pushes you in the back. You know, you're not going to be able to hold them. You're just going to go like that. And that's the same thing as a skid plate. But if you stand up against a wall, put your arms out in front of you like this, and somebody pushes your back, they're not going to be able to push you. And it's basically the same principle here. And I knew that going into this. I just thought that maybe with some gussets and some thick steel, I could make it work. But I really don't want to go to the body. And I haven't explained really why I've been so adamant about that. The biggest reason is because I don't want a bunch of bolts right here, because this is about where it would have to be. And on the driver's side, it would be like right under the gas pedal, right where my foot would go. And I don't want bolts sticking through there. You know, it could be something like this. I don't even need a plate on the inside, but I don't know. I don't want a bunch of random bolts there. And I don't want to take a huge hard hit off a rock and have it come up and dent my floor either. I know it seems kind of weird to just end a video right here with this not finished, but I'm really banking on one of you guys seeing something that I'm not seeing here, or just having some insight on this. You think that idea that I've got's gonna work? You got something better that I'm just missing? I don't know. But I'm at the point where I either got to get it to not come up and hit the transmission, or it's just going in the scrap bin, because I just can't have a half-ass skid plate that doesn't actually protect anything sitting under there. So let me know what you guys think, or if you got a better way you would do it. Appreciate you hanging in there, but we are going to cut it off here, and we'll get this done, I promise.
Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost.